Are your existing solutions able to take advantage of real threat intelligence? Common solutions like firewalls weren't designed to handle the massive and growing volume of threat indicators. This challenge often results in significant gaps in your protections, even when you think you have it covered. You need to protect yourself by filtering network traffic against unique threat indicators in a way that allows you to act. Palo Alto by Bandura Systems is the solution that filters over 10 million indicators right out of the box. Developed with the Department of Defense, Palo Alto is affordable for companies of all sizes. Get your free trial at bandurasystems.com. Rapid7 powers the practice of SecOps. Using shared data, analytics, and automated workflows, SecOps unites IT, DevOps, and security teams to make security an outcome of innovation. Rapid7 combines technology, expertise, and advocacy to drive vulnerability management, application security, incident detection, and log management for more than 7,000 organizations worldwide. Power up your SecOps practice with a free trial at rapid7.com/securityweekly.
All right, as I promised, this is what we call tracking security innovation. The reason we do this, the reason it's important, the reason we started as Startup Security Weekly when we looked at all of this was the startup ecosystem is really vibrant, no matter what anybody tells you. It's exceptionally alive right now. And that's where a lot of the hope for what we're trying to get done in security comes up. So from time to time, we'll bring some of our partners on and some of our founders. We'll talk with them about the journeys and what they've learned and how they got started and what problems they're trying to solve, right? It's the same questions we keep asking. So over the last couple of weeks, Paul and I have been joking that in the run up to RSA, which starts today, the news is light. Well, not really. I mean, I've got a ton of updates that we're going to take you through, and the shows on this week, there's going to be even more. Now, the reason we go through these is a couple things. It helps you get an idea of some of the companies that are out there solving problems that you might have. We also start to take a look at some of the ebbs and flows of the exits and the funding rounds, as well as the types of companies getting funded. I'm starting to see now where we can start to pick out something that's looking more like a feature than a standalone product or platform. And we're starting to get a sense of where the industry and where the investment is. That stuff's always going to matter because are you budgeting for that, or have you prepared for that? Have you thought about those things? So with that said, let me just quickly remind you about Source Boston. Source Boston 2018 is going to be May 9th and 10th. Paul will be there. The crew will be there. And you can register at sourceconference.com. And you get a $75 discount if you use the code SW75WMKW. I know, it's long. It's on our show notes. If you go to the wiki.securityweekly.com, you can get our show notes. All right, let me take you through the week. First news is of an IPO. Carbon Black files for their IPO. Carbon Black endpoint. So it's telling you, right, we're seeing a lot of security solutions and a lot of security endpoints and people that are making their place. They're going to the public markets. They're trying to get that figured out. I've got listed in here a TechCrunch article. If you've ever wanted to really dig into the filing on this, the analysis on it's fantastic, deep. Like you sit down over a cup of coffee and kind of read through it. Bottom line is $191.5 million, 9 rounds of funding. That's a lot of rounds of funding. The placeholder for their IPO is about $100 million. And the analysis in TechCrunch, which made sense to me, said, look, it's more like they're filing because they need the cash, less that they're filing because the timing is perfect and it's right. Now, I don't know if that timing is ever going to be perfect or right. I think the marketplace right now is enjoying security. It's enjoying the IPOs. It's not surprising that we're going to see some of these public offerings, and especially as they continue to do well. So that's our big IPO announcement right now. VMware acquired E8 for an undisclosed amount. E8, basically. They were advanced, let's see, what do they call themselves? Cybersecurity analytics that help enterprises to analyze and detect advanced attacks, malicious insider activities. Now, they've gotten to $23.4 million over 3+ rounds, and their last was a $12 million Series B in October. I think what this shows is a couple of things, right? So a Series B that's when you're at that AB round and it's a 12 million B, you're basically looking at a company that said, we think we've got the product market fit. We think we know how we can make money doing it. And we're really close to proving it out. And that's kind of the way it looks. And you're still traditionally expecting that round to go about 2 years. And here we are, early point 2018. This could just be good timing for them. And or it could be a sign that it was a good time for them to make an exit. It's undisclosed. It's undisclosed coming out of VMware. That's not terribly surprising, but remember, typically if it's undisclosed, unless there's a really good reason for it, that's kind of indicative of a bit of a down round or not exactly the exit everybody was looking for. I took something else out of this though. Right? This UEBA concept, it's really becoming more of a feature, not a platform. We saw a lot of companies pop up, and it was the user and the entity, right? The E is the entity, user and entity behavioral analytics. It's stuff that we were promised 20 years ago that just didn't have the processor and the ability to correlate and do and all of the data. We do now, and we're starting to see these companies get snapped up and they're becoming features. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's great. It's just one of the trends to be paying attention to. Other news of interest, Bomgar was acquired by Francisco Partners for an undisclosed amount. Now, that's a private equity to private equity play. That's not really a big surprise for me. And if you go take a look at all the folks that the Francisco Partners invested in, you're going to see a lot of names that you know and recognize in the security space. So they're not new to it, just like Thoma Bravo is not new to it. I'm always fascinated because Bomgar was purchased by Thoma Bravo. And then just in like a month or two ago, right, back in February, Bomgar acquired Lieberman Software, the identity access management, privileged access management space. And that wasn't terribly surprising because of the way that Bomgar had really built itself up around remote support, remote services. And they had some other security stuff they were trying to get done. So, my guess is, looking at it, and I haven't had time to dig into it, is this made sense for, Thoma Bravo is going a different direction with it. It fits something Francisco Partners was going to do. Looks like they've worked together in the past, and this is just one of those types of things. I just think those are interesting to pay attention to because of the topics and what they are. SourceClear was acquired by CA for an undisclosed amount. SourceClear, if you remember, Black Duck was recently acquired by Synopsys, and there have been some other consolidation in the space. So again, what they're doing here is they're trying to help people take a look at the libraries and open source applications, right? It's what we're seeing. Not only consolidation, but we're seeing a lot of movement in the space right now where we need to think about application security differently. That's why we have Application Security Weekly hosted by Keith Hoodlet. And we're come to everybody every week, and we're looking at these types of issues. And anytime you've got companies that are trying to do it, we're seeing some pretty good funding rounds go for them. And SourceClear getting acquired by CA, not a big surprise to me. And definitely, I think we'll see some of that stuff happening more. SecDo. I always want to call it SecDo. But I guess it's like a martial arts background. SecDo was acquired by Palo Alto Networks, also for an undisclosed. Paul and I took a briefing with SecDo, end of last year, beginning of this year. It was great. I was actually really impressed. And my takeaway, and Paul can correct me, we'll talk about this when he gets back from vacation. But it's kind of like the whole EDR space is not just endpoint anymore. It's detection and response. And what you're kind of finding is some of the players are really good at the endpoint and the agent or agentless. Some are really good at the detection component to it. Some are a lot better at the response. And then that leads us into the whole automation orchestration and how all those different types of things work. SecDo raised about $10 million, Series A, December 2016. So, here we are about a year and a half later. This doesn't feel like, again, it's the same thing. Either the timing was right for them and they fit into the stuff that Palo Alto was doing or not. To me, this, it's undisclosed, but I don't necessarily mean that's not successful. Karamba Security raised $10 million in a debt round. Now, this was interesting because that's the way that it came across. And we see debt rounds from time to time. They do in-car cybersecurity solutions for autonomous cars through automatically sealing electronic control units. All right, so the bottom line was that was really kind of complicated. I went to their website. It didn't necessarily explain it better, but as you started breaking into it, they gave a couple use cases. And I had more questions, but basically what it looks like is they're trying to figure out, as we put more and more stuff into these cars, how do we separate them completely? How do we isolate them? How do we seal them off so that the stuff that really matters can't be controlled by stuff that's not there, et cetera? Really curious, but here's the thing. The guy, the CEO basically said, this is like a venture loan. It's not an investment so much. It's a loan. It's $10 million and they trust us and there's no real strings attached to it. And I thought that was interesting. If this is a space you're in, I'd love to know what you think about their solutions. There's a company called SpyCloud. SpyCloud, $5 million Series A. They are focusing on account takeover attacks. Look, we see more and more of that's happening. My prediction now, they've got $7.5 million over 2 rounds. So a Series A, $5 million Series A, that basically means they've got traction. They've got people that have probably paid for that, are seeing results from it. They see that there's a marketplace for it, and to help people prevent those takeover accounts, the takeover attacks, makes a lot of sense. My instinct on this is going to be a feature. This is the thing that you'll see. You'll see a couple people build it up, and they'll integrate, and that'll be good. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just how I take a look at it. That said, if I'm wrong, if you're using it or you like it, hit me a note. Let me know what's up. All right, Verkada raised a $15 million Series A. Now, that's not entirely accurate, right? Because they've now raised $18.1 million over 3 rounds. So you can call it a Series A, but that's really much more like a B. The difference between the two is, as we talk about, they have a model. The model works. They're making money. Now they got to start figuring out either how to really make money, like actually gain profitability or the pathway to profitability, or they've got a couple more wrinkles to figure out, but they're getting really close to that growth stage, especially when you talk anybody about who's cloud-based growth. That next series for them should be, 15 million is not small, but I would expect to see bigger. Here's what it looks like. They call themselves video security, which I think is interesting because surveillance probably has a pretty crappy tone today. Like selling surveillance is tougher. Selling security is oddly a little bit easier. This is kind of like IoT meets cloud meets surveillance. So they've got camera systems, and they can do indexing, and they can do all sorts of alerting and stuff like that. If you've ever tried to do one of these, it looks like they've got a pretty good marketplace in hospitals and schools. It's so tough to get this stuff wired properly and to figure it all out. Anybody who simplified that seems to do pretty well. They're early in the process. We'll see where they go. Again, though, if you look at the fact, all the companies we've been talking about on the physical side of security starting to cross over and make these investments, again, feels like the kind of company, again, if you're using it, love to hear about it, and love to see what you think about it. Armis raised $30 million in Series B. They are a Internet of Things security platform that allows enterprises to control and restrict unmanaged devices accessing their systems. $30 million Series B, that tells me that they're priming for growth. They feel like what they've got figured out is working, and now they just need more people to know about it. You're seeing Internet of Things has come up quite a bit. It's a trend that is only just beginning. You're going to see a lot more of it. All right, we've got a company called Expel, $20 million Series B. They are a cybersecurity firm that helps enterprises analyze, detect, investigate, and respond to threats. What's interesting then, so I went to their website. They've done $27.5 million over 2 rounds. So that's pretty big. That's not small. Their emphasis seems to be kind of like on response. So their idea was you don't have to pay for an MSSP. In fact, they've got a neat little tab. It's kind of like where we fit. I think that's a great way. If I come to your website, I can't get it for certain. And they were spending a lot of time around, we help you have better insights faster. You can act on it. You don't need an MSSP. We're going to guide you through it. I'm curious what your take on that is. I'm curious. There's been some discussion across our network on whether you should have an MSSP or not, and I'm curious what your take on it is, or where you see how that works out. But I thought it was an interesting angle. Our friends Observe It. They've raised $16 million in a Series B. This is fantastic. They do insider threat management. Paul and I've talked about this. They're a company that we'd looked at in the past that has really impressed us. I've always enjoyed talking to the CEO, Mike McKee. He's a blast and sharp, and no surprise. You can also check out the recent episode of Enterprise Security Weekly, number 87. We did our interview with Kevin Donovan, who very impressive with the way that he explains and represents Observe It. And so you get that opportunity to take a look at that as well. They've done a great job in about $36 million over 2 rounds recently. So congratulations to our partners and friends at Observe It, and we'll look forward to more good stuff from them. I think you call it Opaque Networks. It's a $22.5 million raise in a Series B, and it's OPAQ. So I'm guessing I'd call it Opaque Networks. They're a cloud security company that enables businesses and organizations to centralize, secure, and optimize their networks. I put some stuff in the Series B. Basically said, hey, we're going to go after it now. We're busy. We're getting after it. I got to tell you, I looked at it. I wasn't completely sure what they did or who they competed against, and I think that's one of the challenges when we try to look at the security market space. But I'll put this stuff out there as often as we can. MPOW, a cybersecurity firm, uses AI and machine learning analytics to classify threats and alerts. $10 million Series B. That's $19 million raised in 2 rounds since February 2017. You go to their website, and it basically talks about how, the problem with SIMs, and it goes on and on and on. And, we're not like that. We're better than that. I've seen this line now a lot in the last year or two, but really growing loud maybe last 6 months. We're the anti-SIM. We're not your traditional SIM. We're like SIM but better. Or you don't even need a SIM if you've got us, that type of thing. And I think this is kind of where you're seeing this. It's more towards that automation and orchestration. It's ways that it's not just trying to aggregate data, it's being smarter about it and helping you do more with less. I think anytime if you can make that argument successfully and your technology actually backs it up, you got a fantastic opportunity. And we'll probably look at maybe breaking some of these down from a value prop perspective in the coming weeks. Kenna raised $25 million Series C. So by the time you're at Series C, that basically should signal we're going to hit the gas pedal now. We're going to start expanding. We're going to start really going after it from a sales and a marketing perspective. This is $45 million since November 2012. So their pacing on the stuff is great. Series C, especially for cloud-based company, $25 million, healthy and about expected. And when you go look at their releases, they plan to hire more people, they plan to expand sales, and they plan to innovate. Really what that means is we're hiring. We're hiring the right people into the positions, right? So that means they've got everything kind of figured out, and we're going to go expand sales. Exactly the way that we'd expect this to read. So it'd be kind of neat to see how that works out, because they're doing cloud-based vulnerability management. Their big thing is about measuring risk, and they went into a whole conversation about how they can score it more accurately, which guides your actions better. That's a little bit like what we were just talking about with Sean Tuma. Checker raised $100 million in a Series C. I tried to organize everything today from exits to everything else. So Checker is interesting. It caught a lot of press this week where it talks about the fact that they do background screening, security, and compliance. So I looked at it just for that reason alone, and I went, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." But what's more interesting is kind of the way that they're doing it. So they've raised $149 million over 3 rounds. And the way that I would take it at its simplest is they're helping everybody make those more nuanced connections. So like they might be able to say to you, if I'm remembering this example correct, your applicant pool might only turn up 9 people, but if I'm willing to exclude people that have or not exclude people, include people that have a misdemeanor conviction for whatever, because they're still allowed to do that particular job. Hey, now you've got 100 people you can talk to, not 10. And so one of the things that they caught press for is that they're helping people that have a criminal history get jobs or do the things that they want. But I looked at it too as starting to help people better understand the positions that they're looking for and make sure that they're getting the right people into it. Anytime you tell me that I've got a shortage of talent or a shortage of people and I need better connections or better people who can pass the background checks but fit, do all that type of stuff, I think it's interesting. $100 million as a Series C is a huge raise. That's a big deal. So they're going to be a company worth paying attention to. Maybe they're a company that you've worked with. Last big one of the week, Onapsis raised $31 million in a Series C. So now I put up a thing here from Xconomy, kind of taking a look at it. And the article itself talks about all sorts of raises. In fact, it was really kind of crazy because it was like, look, it's an off year for security and there's not a lot of money going out there and there's not a lot of IPOs and exits, which I'm going to beg to differ every freaking week. And then it goes on and it lists like 7 or 8 things that have happened in the last week or two in the run up to the RSA show. So anytime tells you it's doom and gloom, it's not working, they're not sure where it's going to be, just roll your eyes or be appreciative if you want to. But the reality is security is vibrant. Now, is it confusing? Yes. Is it tough to figure out at times? Yeah, it is. And that's part of what we're trying to figure out and how to do a little bit better when we look at stuff here. For Onapsis, a partner at Security Weekly over the years, $31 million Series C is a great raise. And what I was really kind of excited about was, they said, look, this is helping us getting our stuff figured out. And even in the second article I linked to, it talked about the potential for an IPO in 3 to 4 years. That's interesting. I mean, looking that far out and looking at how they're handling cybersecurity and compliance-based solutions and taking a look at stuff differently. So there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of stuff happening out there. Always love to get your questions and feedback, and we're going to keep bringing out experts like Sean Tuma and Will Lin and others to try to answer those questions. We got more planned up, too, for the coming weeks in terms of segments based on questions that you've asked. We're going to start, and I'm looking at doing a book club. A couple of you have asked now a couple times for a book club, and I've been looking for some models. Let me know what you'd like to see in a book club. Let me know, because I figure I can do one segment a month on a particular book. What questions do you want me to answer? Do you want to read the book first? Do you want that to be your introduction to the book? What would you like from me? Shoot me some notes. I'm at Catalyst, or you can shoot me a note, Michael at either Security Weekly or SecurityCatalyst.com. I'll get both. And, let me know what you'd like to see. Remember, the show's now on Mondays. So it's a busy week. Lots of stuff to think about with attorney-client privilege. Lots of things to think about making the legal case for the things that you've got. And it gives me another week to come up with some more fantastic ideas for next week. I'm finishing up the programming for Q2 today. And we're taking a look ahead. We got some fantastic guests lined up, some segments, answer the questions that you've got, do everything we can to help us improve the business of security. We will see you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, have a great week.